You are here with Tripedal Reviews. Boss has a long-standing tradition of dropping the ball when it comes to creating software editors for their products. In years past, their user community has created their own editors to make up for Boss's shortcomings. Only recently, within the last few years, has Boss picked up the ball themselves and started creating their own editors. While the release of the compact SL-2 is a gift, there is one glaring issue with the product, and that is the lack of ability to create your own presets. Boss has nerfed the MD500 from being the ultimate version of the slicer by removing the 3D routing options that were on the original. They have nerfed the SL-2 by not allowing you to create your own patterns. This means there is no ultimate version of the slicer that gives you everything. Many purchased the SL-2 in hopes that Boss would release an editor, and to no one's surprise they have not. Luckily, the user community has once again came up with a solution. It is completely unofficial, but for those that are curious, can you create your own patterns with the SL-2? The answer is yes, there is a way. I will show you how that works in this video. Links to the editor and documentation will be in the description if you want to try it out. Do so at your own risk. And without further ado, let's get into it. If you just want to create a pattern from scratch, you can go ahead and skip these first few steps. These are only necessary if you want to edit an existing patch. So the general idea of this is that we can export a set list which contains one preset as a file that we can then import into the web editor, make our adjustments, and then export from the web editor to a file that we can then import into the Boss Tone Studio. The primary downside to this is that you cannot hear your edits in real time. You have to export, modify, and then import to be able to hear what you've done. In order to do this, we're going to want to create a new live set. We can go ahead and give this a name. We then want to drag a preset that we want to modify into the new live set. And then we're going to want to export this live set. Now your two buttons over here are the import and export buttons. You can import into the Tone Studio, or you can export from the Tone Studio. In this case, we want to export. We then select the live set that we want to export, and we choose File. We can then save the file with whatever name we would like. Now we want to go to the web editor, and when you first visit, it's going to give this About information box. You can just go ahead and click off of that. On the left-hand side here, we have Upload TSL or Download TSL. We want to upload a TSL to edit, and then choose the set list that we exported from the Tone Studio. You'll see a success dialog box on the right-hand side here, and now our pattern has been imported. The two primary sections that you're going to be dealing with are the Slicer Channel 1 and Slicer Channel 2 sections. If you're only doing a single slicer, you would do just Channel 1. If you want dual slicing, you can mess with both channels. The parameters within them are just mirrors of each other. So one thing that I did find is if you import your pattern and you have something other than user selected, you're not going to be able to edit any of these steps. So what you need to do is go to Pattern Select and choose User. And then you should be able to modify the steps of your pattern from there. In this section, we can either enable or disable the slicer channel. We want to make sure the pattern select is user, as I've already mentioned. This is pretty much like the MD500 editor, so if we want to do an effect type, we can choose what our effect type is here. We can choose the number of steps. As just standard slicer parameters, we can adjust the length of each step, the level of each step, the bandpass filtering of each step, If you have an effect chosen aside from pitch, let's say flanger, you could adjust the level of the effect of each step, or if you have pitch selected here, then you could adjust the pitch of each step. In this example, we're just going to leave the effect type to off. One thing to note is that the duty cycle, the attack, and the speed cannot be adjusted with the editor. Those have to be adjusted on the pedal. So here you're creating your pattern, but as far as pattern manipulation, that happens on the pedal. Now, a lot of this algorithm looks to have been pulled from the MD500, and there's all sorts of different effect parameters that you can control there. Now, in this editor, these are not labeled, so a lot of the time you're just not going to know what these are doing. But there is a Google document which offers kind of best guess on what these parameters are, and they look to mirror what's in the MD500. So for example, if we take a look at the compressor parameters and we cross-reference that with the Google Doc, we can see in the compressor section, we can either turn it on or off, which would be the enable, and then our various parameters. We have the sustain of the compressor, the attack, the level, and tone. So for example, if you wanted to adjust the attack time of the compressor, you would adjust parameter 2. So that document is handy if you want to get into some of these lesser used edit functionalities. I'll leave a link to that in the description, as well as a link to this web editor. And that's pretty much all there is to it. You just go make whatever adjustments that you would like to make. And then you can click download TSL, which will download the file that you can then import into the Tone Studio again. So back in the Tone Studio, we can import the patch that we just made. And to do that, we click the import button and then choose file, and then choose the pattern that we just created. This will import the pattern with a new live set, and we should now be able to hear the pattern. Now, you don't need to keep all of these live sets around. They're just the format that we have to work with to be able to edit our patterns at the current time. So you can take all of your patterns and kind of conglomerate them into a set list that you use to keep all of your created patterns. And then you can go ahead and delete any cruft set lists that you don't want. Now I have a set list that just has all of the custom patterns that I've created. And that's all there is to exporting patterns from the Tone Studio into the web editor, modifying them, and then importing them back. Now, the easier thing to do is just to create a patch from scratch. And to do that, you just skip all of the steps I just mentioned and just go directly to the web editor and load it up. And it will load a very basic pattern for you to work with. And you can just go in here and modify it as you please, and then download it and import it into the Tone Studio, just like we did the one that we exported and then re-imported after we made our changes. So I hope you found that tutorial helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more pedal reviews and tutorials in the future. Hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.